And I'm personally lost 65 pounds and have been keeping them off for 10 years. If I can get your attention there, then I can get you weight loss. It's a great lever to pull, but no one's talking about it as this incredible weight loss tool. There isn't anything that you can't change when you face it like this.
Liz, over the years, you've worked with thousands of people, helping them lose weight. And I'm curious, right off the bat here, what do you notice the differences between somebody who has that goal, achieves it, versus somebody who can achieve it, or somebody who achieves it and then yo-yos back and forth?
I think right off the bat, it's someone who's willing to transform the way that they think about the process of weight loss. So there's a quote that I often think about is that people believe that weight loss leads to transformation. And I believe that transformation leads to weight loss. And I try with everything I do to transform the way that people understand a process that they learned often as children by watching parents go through a cycle that is not successful. And so when a person is successful, and I'm personally lost 65 pounds and have been keeping them off for 10 years, it's because I started to see the process as not the process that was taught to me as a child and beyond in the endless dieting cycle that I personally went through. So that would be my thought. And I'm excited to dig in with you about that transformation.
Well, let's start there. Let's get into this process because typically when people think about weight loss, they're thinking about exercise, they're thinking about diet, but this is a whole new take and a new way of looking at things. So let's get into the nitty-gritty here.
Yeah. Well, I think that, if we start from that idea of I was out personally on a run today thinking about this and kind of it hit me that the understanding is so strange that when somebody joins a gym, they often think, oh, I'm joining a gym for a year or more. Maybe they think I'm just going to join this thing. When they join a weight loss program, they think of it, oh, I'm just going to join this place and I'm going to lose weight and then I'm done with this thing. And it's a really odd behavior pattern and thought process that got set up for people in the diet mentality world. And my goal is always to teach people that this idea around weight loss and maintaining weight loss has to be, again, that transformation in your thought about the process. And that's really in the realm of brain science and understanding habit formation and behavior modification more than you saying, oh, should I eat, you always use the example of an apple or a Snickers bar. Which one should I eat? Like, you don't know. We all know. If it was that easy, then we'd all be the weight that we desire to be. If it was that simple, you can Google search a great diet. Any food plan you want is available at your fingertips. If it was about that, wouldn't we all have figured this out? So I think there's a lot for us to think about in even just that simple thought process around, okay, what if I started to think about my weight loss as an ongoing project in my life that has a space and a time that I commit to it, just the way I commit to my family, just the way I commit to my exercise plan, just the way I commit to my workplace. And we start to think about it as this ongoing service that we do to ourselves. Because, keeping 65 pounds off for over 10 years now, I did go out on that run this morning. And I have tried to help people understand that if this was just about food, we would all have done it. And if it was just about food and exercise, we would have all done it. But, I'm really trying to expand out the conversation to talking about everything from your food and your exercise into things like hydration and sleep and stress and movement patterns during the day. Those 6 pillars as the foundation of your wellness, and you thinking about it in an ongoing way. It never ends. I personally am struggling right now with steps in my life, with getting daily movement. I sit on Zoom a lot. The light is getting less in the day and it's getting colder. So my dog walks have gotten shorter and all of a sudden I'm not moving as much, right? It's not, I'm a pro, I'm an expert. People come to me, right? And I'm out there still working the process through seasonal shifts and changes in my lifestyle and those things. So I hope people really hear this message, is that this is an ever-changing, very interesting and fun project that they get to do, not a one-off torturous moment in time where they lose weight, stop what they were doing, and gain it all back.
I like that. I think it takes the pressure off. And this reminds me of a story you talk about in the book where you ran into your neighbor who was making a dietary shift that she or he, I can't recall what it was, a male or female, but this person had taken on this new paradigm and was out shopping for all these new groceries. The cart was overflowing. And I think they had been to a supplement store too, and they're picking up all kinds of new stuff. And that can be overwhelming for people. And you mentioned the 6 parts of this, and we're going to take our time and get into all of these. But your approach is very gentle, and it's this evolution like you're talking about here, where it's not like at the snap of the fingers you're going to change your whole lifestyle around. We're going to slowly build on it and look at this as a project over a lifetime that we're going to continue to evolve and learn.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. And I love that example of that person. And again, was thinking about that on my run this morning, was like how insane that I did that as a human, right? I'm one of the only people in the weight loss industry as it lives today who actually has lost weight and then written programs and books. And I've been in the weight loss industry for over 20 years, behind some of the biggest companies in the world, writing those programs. And often you get people writing programs that are based in scientific nutrition that on paper are exactly right. Those calculations, should you be able to follow them, will give you weight loss. But there's nothing in that program about the day in and day out decisions to continue to make those choices. Because again, if it was that simple, I could be handing out diet plans, left and right, and everyone would be fine. But it's that when it becomes 4 o'clock and the kids come home from school and you're exhausted from work and now they're asking for a snack and they're eating peanut butter in front of you and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like, I can't get through this moment. It's the moments. It's the actual doing of. It's not that, again, that no one out there needs to be told exactly. And like that neighbor of mine, the idea, and I'm just trying to shake people's heads up around the weight loss industry, right, is the idea that you would read a book and then go and literally in 24 hours go buy all new foods that you don't even know how to prepare, supplements that you're not sure how your body will react to. Maybe you're at this point, people are snapping on blood glucose monitors, and they are, they're starving themselves for many hours a day. They are going into keto diets that may not be right for someone's health, but they will go and do it for the promise of weight loss. And it's this idea that, again, this transformational thought around weight loss being, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to read off of this list of foods and I'm going to be tortured. I'm going to be miserable for a period of time to do this thing. That's the idea that we've gotten. And I really want people to understand that weight loss can be fun. It can be enjoyable. It can be something where you learn a lot about yourself and you transform your relationships through it, right? Because you learn how to manage a whole bunch of things that were standing in your way. So we cannot jump in a very short amount of time going and buying those groceries. The adherence to that plan is so difficult. The jump is so tall that you don't quite make it and you feel bad about it, so you quit altogether. I invert that process. I really want people to take the baby step that you can do versus the giant step that you can't sustain. I'd rather see you stacking and stacking and stacking to achieve that success, just the way you do in every other place in your life. None of us, like, I'm thinking of you and your amazing podcast. This did not happen overnight. It started with an idea, and it started with a tiny project, and then it started with this and with that, and then you built it over time. We do that with anything. But in the weight loss space, people don't want to hear it. They just want that magic pill, and they want to torture themselves and believe that that's the only way that they're worthy of getting weight loss.
Well, Liz, I think a good place here to go is get really practical with people and give them that first baby step. So, for somebody who's tuning in and they've maybe struggled to lose the weight, or again, coming back to how we opened up, they've lost the weight, gained it back, and they're on this yo yo type of thing, let's talk directly to them, give them the first baby step, and hopefully over the period of time we're going to spend here together, we're going to give people other areas that we can apply as they get that momentum going.
Yeah. Well, I will say that whenever someone has lost weight, regardless of what plan they were on, the reason they lost that weight was because they changed a behavior based on the outline of whatever program it was that they were following. So let's just use a company that asks you to track your food intake. Okay, that's a behavior that is modifying your behavior. You are actually writing down what you eat, and by modifying that behavior, guess what happens? You modify a whole bunch of other behaviors. All of a sudden, you see on paper that, wow, I'm way over that calorie or that carb threshold. Wow. So it makes you recognize something. And so you go, oh, I can't have that snack after dinner because I'm out of calories or points or carbs or whatever it is. So you don't eat after dinner. It was never that that plan was perfect. And if you had only adhered to it, that it would be the perfect thing. It was that you were changing your behavior. So I think the best baby step, the very first thing I ask everyone to do when they come to us is say, take a minute and think about one or two small behaviors that you know are standing in the way of your weight loss. We all know, right? Oh, well, you know what? It's probably not helping that I get so tired and I come down after putting the kids to bed and I sit on that couch and I start mindlessly eating in front of the television after dinner. If I could change that behavior, I would reduce my intake by X number. Or another one that hits people like square between the eyes is the snooze button. If I just put that phone across the room and stopped hitting snooze, I would get up and I would have that 30 minutes to get to my exercise class. So it's really always been about the fact that, when you implemented that new behavior of going to exercise class, that was a new behavior and you were changing your behavior. It wasn't the exercise class that was the magic. It was the consistency around the behavior that was giving you the results. So that transformed way of thinking is, as you're listening to this, I really want you to think about what is that one, two, or at very most in any week, you don't want to be working on more than about one or two small behaviors that you're trying to change, because they're very difficult to change. This behavior modification or these habits, these routines that you go through are deeply embedded. And by examining those and saying, wow, it probably, doesn't help me to have these foods in the house. Whenever I see the cookies in the pantry, I eat the cookies in the pantry. My environment could use a little clean out. That's what most of these diets force you to do. My neighbor putting all that stuff in her cart, she had to clean out what was in her house and replace it with kale and quinoa and, whatever roasted vegetable she was going to make next. And all of those, yes, are healthy foods, and they're pushing out the unhealthy foods. So the diet is a Trojan horse for behavior change.
And when it comes to behavior change, what are some of the areas that people typically slip up on? Like, say they do this exercise and come up with two or three behaviors that they're going to work on right away. What are some things that they can do to help form a habit out of that? Like, are there certain things that they should be triggers that they can put in their environment where they're going to remember to do different things, or how do they go about doing that in a practical way?
Yeah, I love that, Jesse. That's exactly right. So every behavior that we have, every habit, and I love to remind people of this if they don't know it already, about 50% of your day is you just performing habits. And habits are wonderful and important things in our lives because they help us not make so many decisions in a day. So you don't want to decide again what way you're going to drive to work, right? That making that decision every day depletes you. So instead, that's a good example of a habit. Is like you're driving there, you get to work, you don't remember how you got there. Your brain has gone into its habit pattern, which is in this real deep, dark back spot in the brain where you can actually be having frontal lobe activity go on. So, my run, for example, this morning, I run the same exact route every time I run for a very strong purpose. I don't want to be thinking about which street should I turn onto. I want to be letting the frontal lobe activity take place that I get when I'm out on a run, which is a very higher level thinking. It's like oxygenated and blood flowing, and it gives me ideas and ideation, right? So habits are fantastic, right? Using them, leveraging them is really important. But when you're trying to make a new one, right? So, like the woman who's eating on the couch after she gets the kids down out of pure habit, she's triggered. She's got emotional triggers going on of like, oh my gosh, these kids, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm, depleted. I have no decision making ability left in my day. And the pattern or the driving to work that occurs at night for her is to wander in that pantry, grab something, and eat it. And that's a really smart choice. I love to tell people like they're not broken, they're awesome. Those behaviors that you've been doing, they have a payoff. They're a very smart way of doing business. The brain says, I'm tired, I'm frustrated. Those triggers lead to a routine that has a reward attached to it. So for this woman, she sits on that couch and she has that snack and she gets a serotonin release in the brain. That food releases a wonderful chemical that makes her feel calmer, happier, just all the things. So recognizing when you're doing something. So is it, I'm just using this example, and then you must remind yourself. It's sort of like if you decided to drive a different way to work, you'd forget. You'd get all the way there and be like, oh shoot, I was going to drive a different way today. So you've got to put like a big old sticky note on your windshield that says, remember today, oh, I'll only take that down and drive to work that other way. Same thing at night, right? She's got to get that food out of the house. She's got to put a sticky note, the food that's triggering her, or put a sticky note on it, or put it in a drawer where she won't see it, or which will trigger her just enough to remember, oh, we're supposed to drive a different way tonight. And then she can go and try to have a different routine. So she's triggered one piece of the routine in a new way. I often recommend that you trigger and change environmental pieces as well. So if I were her, I'd say, okay, not only am I going to put this sticky note on and remind myself I'm not doing this tonight, I'm going to actually change location. I'm going to go watch my show or do my thing up in my bedroom in a new location, because habits are 360 degrees, right? They are what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what the lighting's like. Everything triggers a pattern for your brain. And when you've done a pattern repeatedly without some real help, the brain's going to pull you back into that routine that it loves so much, and it loves it. It loves it, and it's going to really. I think that's the friction that people feel when they quote air quotes fall off of a diet, is what we call regression, which it's very normal to set up a new behavior. This woman triggers this pattern. She goes up to her room. She does this for a while. And then one night she just sort of regresses and goes back and sits on the couch and sure enough eats that. And most people think that means it's the end. And I'm telling you, that's just the beginning. Real habit formation is about consistency and the ability to say, oh, because I did that one night doesn't mean I'm broken. Doesn't mean something's bad about me. Just means I got to remind myself again that I'm doing this new thing, because the brain is going to try to always pull you back to those old patterns and behaviors. So triggering a new routine will elicit a new reward. And the reward that you're looking for, this is a little bit of a something to really think about. the reward that she was getting, remember I said it was that serotonin release, it was that de-stressing, that calming, right? That peace that she was feeling. She needs to look for that same reward. So going up to her bedroom, maybe lighting a candle, getting in the bathtub, doing something that makes her feel that sense of right, that she was actually looking for. So the reward is not, oh, I'm going to save $1 in a jar every time I go upstairs, although you could do that too, like an external reward. You could trigger some extra motivation with an external reward, but you've got to understand what the reward is that you're getting from the behavior, right? So that becomes a really deep thought process for people to go like, what is it that I'm looking for from this when I'm doing this? Sometimes it's, hey, me and my husband sit on the couch and we eat together and it's how we connect. And you go, oh, I'm looking for a connection with my husband. I don't need to do it through food. We could do it through other means, right? We could read together. We could, rub each other's feet. I don't know, something. So looking for those deep, meaningful pieces of what it is that you're looking for, and then triggering new routines, and then not being afraid when they regress. My favorite image for people as they think about habit formation and how they're trying to change behaviors is to think about like a field of really tall grass in front of you, right? I often think of Field of Dreams, the movie Field of Dreams with the big cornfield, and the guys, they walk out of the cornfield and they always walk out from this little spot, right? And this path is worn down that they've come out of. That's a habit. Right? That's what habits do. They wear down the grass, the tall grass in front of you. And once it's worn down, your brain says, oh, let's go that way. It's much easier to walk that way. Let's walk over the grass that's already been matted down. What I'm asking you to do is to look at the grass, find a new path, and machete your way through it. I'm asking you to go and push down some grass. And that's not comfortable. And your brain really reacts to that. It says, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. This isn't enough. It doesn't matter. I hate this, right? It's going to flare all these thoughts and emotions up at you as you try to change a behavior. Do it to a kid. If you have children, try to tell them that they're going to go, change a behavior that they're used to. Watch what kind of a meltdown they have, right? We're all just these kids inside. But once you understand there's an emotional reaction that occurs when you try to change this thing, then you get proud and you go, oh, there it is. There's my brain getting mad at me as I try to make a change. I understand I'm crabby because of this, or it's making me a little edgy right now. I'm going to keep going over this grass until this grass gets as matted down as the other grass. But the key is the other matted down grass that you matted down first, it never goes away. It never really truly grows back. The brain leaves that pathway open. So sometimes we're going to drift back to the old path and we're going to walk that old path. You're not a bad person. You didn't do anything wrong. Can you identify that you're now behaving differently? You're eating after dinner again. That's cool. I'm going to see what I can do to get myself back into the other trail of grass. So that's the way I think about weight loss, which is just a constant iteration. It's a constant thought about what is going well. What do I want to continue to work towards? What baby behaviors am I changing? And why am I changing them? And what am I getting from the original behavior? That process of weight loss is actually fun. It's like a game. It's not, okay, I have to eat kale and quinoa for lunch. And if I do that for the next 52 lunches, I'll lose 10 pounds and then I'll go back to the way I was. There's no introspection. There's no learning there. You've simply layered a food plan on top of you without changing any of the existing behaviors. And therefore, when you remove the food plan, everything comes piling back on because there's no true learning beneath it. So this is my life's work, is to try to transform the way that people think about this process.
So to make sure I have this right, let's come back to our example. We have somebody, say, who after dinner has a habit of sitting on the couch, watching TV, and then has this craving to go to the fridge and have some kind of snack, which isn't ideal if they're on a weight loss journey. And what we do in this case is to change the behavior. We'd put a sticky note on the fridge. So that would trigger a different behavior if we got into that subconscious pattern where we're just acting out of habit, we would realize this is something we want to do differently. And instead of maybe going back to the couch after reading that sticky note, we would go up to the bedroom with a book and do something else that has a reward. Because again, there's neurochemistry involved in this. You mentioned serotonin. We need to have that replacement reward. Instead of having that sweet snack after dinner, has to be something else that replaces that.
Yes. And the way that I love the word that you used, the craving word. The way that we experience these habit patterns is as a craving because the brain truly craves repetition. It thrives on repetition. I like to tell people, like, you want to think about your brain as if it's like a supercomputer in your head, and just like my laptop here, it's its own thing. It's just you think of your arm. Your arm is its own thing. It's a part of your body, but it's its own thing, right? Your brain is an organ that is its own thing, and it people often think that because they have a thought, that thought is real, or that thought or that craving is real. It is a craving because you've repeatedly eaten the snack after dinner. So the brain is making you believe shaving a haircut, 2 bits, shaving a haircut, 2 bits. I want it. I want it. I want it. Of course it wants it. It's a broken machine that only knows control alt delete, control alt delete, control alt delete. It doesn't know how. So you have to step in and help it realign to a new behavior pattern. And that is a journey. It's not, and you can have runs of it. You can use different external motivators, right? Like the sticky note, or you can use apps, behavior modification apps. You can trigger, I trigger drinking more water by having a big yellow water cup on my thing. And I've created a habit that when I come up to my office, I can't even come up here without this thing. If I don't, I feel literally like I've forgotten something. I forgot, and then I'll immediately go my water, and I'll go get it. That's how deeply ingrained it is. So you can change any pattern. That's the thing when I tell you, like, I believe so much in empowering people because they feel very disempowered by the weight loss industry. And I just want you to see it differently and know that there isn't anything that you can't change when you face it like this, as let me examine the behavior, let me trigger new routines and new patterns and new rewards. And then repeat, 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 understand when I'm regressing, and then push back into the behavior that I'm trying to make deeper, the one I'm trying to mat the grass down in. So yeah, you did a great job encapsulating that.
Liz, a few minutes back, you touched on something. You mentioned there being a why there. And I'm curious how important this is in the big scheme of things. Say weight loss is the goal. That's what we're talking about today. But do you feel for people early on in the game, it's important to realize what the why is behind that weight loss? So when times get tough, like you said, people need to expect this isn't going to be easy in the beginning when we're trying to switch those behaviors. Does having a why that you've specifically mapped out help during those times when things get hard?
I think it really does. I think there are a few magical things you can do for yourself along the journey, and one of them is to map out that why. And I think that's something that has been spoken about pretty broadly. Like, why are you doing this? Is it that you want to be active, with your grandchildren, or whatever your why is? You want to run a half marathon with your husband. I don't know what it is. What that why truly is. That why, in the moment of your brain trying to get you to eat a sweet after lunch, is going to mean almost nothing to you. Literally nothing. Even what I saw, I was behind many, many, many research projects and scientific research, and in rooms where I was behind the glass watching people. And we often said, like, okay, you've just been told by your doctor that you are pre-diabetic. And, how does that change you? It gives you fear, and that might change you for a minute, but it won't in the moment that there are all of these different brain uh, kind of reactions taking place around food. You won't be able to touch base with that why. You won't be like, oh, in 10 years, I want to have good blood sugar numbers, right? Same with your bigger why. I think where I've really spent a lot of my time lately is in helping people to really focus in on who. Who are you doing this for? Because a lot of times what comes out is all of this other stuff. Oh, I think I'm doing it kind of because I think I should. I'm doing it because for my parents. I'm doing it for my husband. I'm doing it with my sister because she needs to. I think it's like, who are you doing this for? And if you can't really say, I am truly, I want to do this, that becomes a bigger driver of like, who am I doing this for, and really thinking about that, because I was put on weight loss programs at the time I was very young, so that created this idea in me that like, oh, okay, other people really want me to look a certain way to be acceptable or loved, and that there's a way that I should feel like I need to do this. So I chased that for many, many years, right? Going, oh, I'm doing this for myself, I think. And when that wasn't true, it was for the approval of others. And when I moved from that and began doing it from the perspective of, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Oh my gosh, my sleep is so much better. My relationships are so much better. I have so much more energy. And it was about me, that it was so impactful. So I hope that's helpful for people. So like, really examine, who are you doing this for? And if you want to do it for you, really figure out the why you're doing it for you, right? Mine came down to everyday life. Like, I have two sons. They're teenage boys. They're super active. We go on majorly active vacations. We jump off cliffs and we swim in the ocean and we climb, and I was like, oh gosh, I just want to be able to do that with them. So that why then becomes important as to why I get up and exercise, right? And why I eat right, and why I stay healthy, and why I want to live a long life. So I hope that distinction is helpful for people.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. The other magical piece I was going to say is just get into community. Do not stay in this by yourself. Again, that why is not enough to get you through the day to day. You need people who are doing what you're doing and supporting you through it, whatever that means for you, whether you're in a group. I do weight loss classes, right? Because I believe that cohorting people into the same period of time and letting them go through something together is so powerful, because you're not left to your own devices to say, yeah, well, I don't know. You've got someone to say, remember, we're doing this. Like, I'll text you, or I'll meet you for a walk, and we're doing this thing. Because what I said to you is, the brain is going to go back to the patterns, and those thought patterns are deeply embedded. And that why that you came up with and wrote down on paper is a thought in a moment. It's not an embedded thought pattern that's been going on forever, which is, oh, I do this every day. I do this every day. I eat this and I feel this way about myself. And it's just a thought in a moment.
Liz, coming back to your story, you mentioned quickly there that, part of the catalyst, it sounds like, for making the sustainable weight loss in your journey was your kids and being able to be active with them, and switching the focus from losing the weight for other people to doing it for yourself. But I'm curious, if you come back to that period 10 years ago when you lost, I think it was 60 or 65
65
pounds,
pounds. Yeah.
what was the actual catalyst at that time? Like, in a really specific sense, like, what was it for you that time that was different than the other times that you tried to lose the weight?
Well, and that's what's interesting. I love that you're asking me this, because I don't know that I've ever even verbalized this until this moment. But I I was, again, at that point, feeling like I needed to do this because, this is my job, right? At the time I was working at Weight Watchers, I'd had a baby and I was struggling. And I was like, there was an external pressure there. And I took that weight off for the external pressure. And then I struggled with it. I struggled keeping it off, because it wasn't a part of me. It was a something that I was doing with a lot of external pressure of like, oh my gosh, well, this is what I do for a living and this is my job. And now I know, like, with or without my job, this is how I would behave, because I've created a bed of habits that are me, and they do them for me. I didn't get up at 5:45 this morning to go on a run for any other reason except I knew that I would feel better all day, that this would make my quality of life today, for me personally, how I experience the world, would actually be better from what I did. So it's an inversion of that, and I hope that this is resonating for people, of this like hanging on by your fingernails to this integrating this thing into your life, one behavior, one pattern at a time, and figuring out how that lives and what it looks like for you, because yours won't look like mine. That's the other problem, is these one size fits all solutions are so, they're just, it's insane that we think that one person's program would look like the next person's program. So I hope that helps someone to understand that really integrating this into why you do what you do.
And I think it's only going to get easier for people once they get that momentum going, because we talked about the new behaviors and ingraining those in the subconscious. But even putting that aside, when you get to the point where your energy is picking up and you look in the mirror and feel good about how you look, and you're going to have all these different benefits from getting rid of the extra weight, that's going to be momentum and inertia that you can keep on going in that direction.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about this as we are looking at the research and trying to help people become what we call addicted to that positive payoff and benefit, right? And that's where you asked me, like, what's the difference between those people who take this thing long term? Again, it's that baby step, right? Because I think about exercise, right? Whereas most people are like, I'm joining a gym, and then they go and they like work out and they get so sore that they're so miserable that they're like, I'm never going back to that place, right? So they can't become addicted to these crazy, amazing things that happen to you in a day after you do the right kind of exercise for you, which is different. Like, you may like swimming, you might like yoga, I like running, I like kickboxing, whatever it is. You've got to figure out that thing, and you have to build it slowly over time. It isn't a Jan 1, enter the gym and I start working out 5 days a week and think, sort of like the grocery cart, like I'm going to stick to this crazy. It's like putting a sticker on something, and it's just going to peel off over time because it's not integrated into the self. You haven't gone and done this little bit of research of like, you know what, I'm sort of used to be a dancer, and maybe I'll try a dance class versus going to join a gym and see how that fits. And I always liken it to like trying a hat on at a hat store is my favorite. Like, if you walked into a hat store and you tried on the hat and you went to that dance class and you hated it, you wouldn't buy the hat, right? If it didn't look good on you. But we instead go, well, I should. No, and I'm going, nope. You keep doing the research till you find what it is that you enjoy. What foods do you enjoy? What exercise do you enjoy? Like, instead of this just ramming a giant thing on top of yourself to say, oh, this'll do it. It's I hate to say it, but we have to do the work for it to stick. Like anything in life, we have to actually think about ourselves and do the research on what's right for us, because we're all so different.
Yeah, it's definitely, talking to you and reading your book, really apparent the fact that this is a choose your own adventure for people, and they have to go through
Yes, I
trial
love
and
that.
error and see what works for them. But given that, and I think this is an important piece too, that we give people the 6 pillars that are
Yes.
very general, that are going to help cradle people and keep them within their experimenting. And I think a good place to start out is talking about the 100 carbs a day.
Yeah.
For people that want to lose weight, you know, carbs are often talked about in the health and wellness space, especially when it comes to weight loss. But you have this really, you know, approach where you're giving guidance, but it is also very gentle. So
Yes.
the goal is 100 carbs. That's the target, 100 grams of carbs. But there is some leeway there for, people to play around with that. But I think to start off, let's talk about why, out of all the food quote unquote rules you give in the book, this is the one. This is you're talking about carbs. It's not like people are going to go through your book and they're not going to see a certain diet recommended or certain superfoods or certain supplements. It's carbs. So
Yeah.
let's talk about, obviously this has to be really important. So let's talk about why that is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. You referenced so many important pieces of this, right? The book is called Target 100 because every one of the six pillars is anchored around the number 100. And so 100 grams of carbs in a day, 100 ounces of water a day, 100 minutes of movement, 100 minutes of exercise in a week, 100 minutes of sleep, extra sleep in a week, 100 minutes of extra stress relief in a week. So there are hundreds, but this was all based on the idea that target 100 on thinking about an archery target, right? And when we pull that arrow back and we aim for the 100, we don't hit it all the time. Sometimes we're going to hit a 91, sometimes we're going to hit 120. That the ishness of the 100 has to be very much in everyone's focus, because what I learned about brain science is that guilt and shame really trigger a reward system. And most of us have been dieting from a young age or for a long time in our lives. And these programs had very strict adherence rules. And you said it's so important what you said, this idea of trial and error. What we've done in the past with diets of the past was trial, trial, trial. No trial and error. Trial, okay, it was just the trial. And if there was an error, we thought that we were done. I want everyone to hear this is trial and error is not a bad word. Error is a good word. It's teaching you what's not right for you, pushing you closer to what is right for you. So trial and error. I picked carbohydrates because, well, for many reasons. The simplicity of the carbohydrates is so important. Okay, it's just one number for you to look at. It's the number was chosen from my perspective after doing so much research around where are the real dangers living in our food system at this point, right? In the way in which we're processing foods, adding sugar to them, the way in which we're manipulating grains at this point, all of those things, those really live in the carbohydrates. And those are the addictive pieces. Those are those Doritos, right? That there's literally a chemist sitting in a room working on a Dorito with your brain scan and your bliss point till you cannot stop eating those Doritos. Doritos have almost zero protein. They have lots of sugar and lots of carbs. So they become something that you will notice. Oh, well, that's probably something that I shouldn't eat. I'm trying to teach people where the dangerous foods are and push you into whole natural foods by limiting your carbohydrate intake. I will say that Target 100 isn't perfect. I say to everybody, give me a B, like live the B life. I don't want an A life. The thing I would say about anyone who's like, oh, she said 100 grams of carbs, I'm just going to go for it, which is why I put the formula on the front of my book. I'm not trying to hide this from anyone. I want everyone to think about this. I don't want you to think of, being afraid of a baked potato or being afraid of having an ear of corn because those vegetables look higher in carbs. I want you to be looking at those packaged processed food carbs very, very differently. And if I can get your attention there, then I can get you weight loss. So the carbs are important. The 100 grams is very livable. That's my whole goal, is if you can't have a baked potato, or if you can't have a bite of cake or a piece of cake at somebody's birthday party and still be able to live in your day, then who wants to even be living? Then we're just back in diet mentality. So it's a very gentle amount of carbs. It's not super restrictive, and that goal there was to help you learn flexible restraint, so that you could flexibly go to a party and have a piece of cake, not feel bad about it, be able to go home and not then what I used to do, which was just binge out because I'd had a piece of cake and I'm a bad person. And now I'm out of my goals, right? So getting them out of that all or nothing thinking. So 100 is very ish and very livable.
You touched on something there I want to go a bit deeper into, and that's, making a mistake. And we've touched on this a couple times now, and, falling off the wagon and everything is lost. Because this is inevitable, we're going to have days where we make different decisions and some are going to be better than others. How do you go about helping people not fall off the wagon?
Mm.
other than knowing ahead of time that it's going to happen and it's part of the
Mhm.
process. But like for somebody that does go to a party and they end up having a second piece of cake and have pizza and they're enjoying the community aspect, and to them that was a pro and it made sense. How do they not fall off the wagon basically when they make those choices?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that because I think this is such a key piece of why I wrote Target 100. So you get 100 grams every day. When you wake up, you get a new fresh set the next day. And there's no, oh, I'm gonna, which is diet mentality. I was bad yesterday, right? Bad in air quotes for anyone who can't see me. I was bad. I went to this party and I went off my plan. I used to do the same thing. And what that meant to me was then I was gonna eat my face off for the next X number of days, weeks, or months before I got back on. I'm trying to shorten that for you. So every day you just wake up and you have a fresh 100. There's no punishment. Most diet plans punish you and say, oh, well, you used up all your extra points, and now you have to eat kale and quinoa for the rest of the meals for the rest of the week. I don't believe in that because it never was about you going to that party and having a good time with your friends and family and going over the 100 for that time period. It was about you then feeling guilt and shame, which I'm going to tell you, this reward center in the brain gets lit up and we do more of what it is that we feel bad about. It's just a part of the way the brain is wired. So if you have had this happen to you, which I had it happen hundreds of times, and then I went and researched this, it's a very normal thing for people. And so my goal with Target 100 is to help you understand that yesterday has nothing to do with today. And if you can wake up and physiologically, I like to warn people, I have a worksheet that's not in the book, it's in my next book called The Art of Recovery. In that you do go to that party, you're going to actually have a lot of cravings the next day because your body is like, oh, yummy sugar. That was amazing. Alcohol. I like it. I want more of that. You know why? Because it's built your brain. They love it. They study your brain and they look at how can they make you crave more foods. So once that sugar and maybe that alcohol is in your body, that next day, I think you aim to be even at 50% that next day. Maybe your portions are a little bigger. Maybe you do not exercise that day, but you do go for a walk and you drink a lot of water. You look at the other pillars and you lean on those. Then by the next day, you're about 75% back on your full program. And by day 3, you're like cooking with gas again. So this is the opposite of what you've been taught, which is I was bad. Now I starve myself tomorrow because I was bad yesterday. I want to totally change that paradigm. Instead, go like this. I love you. I love you. I know we're having some cravings today. It's okay. We're going to have an extra piece of chicken at dinner tonight. And then we're going to go to bed early and drink a lot of water. And we're going to get through this and get the sugar out of my bloodstream. And by day 2, you feel almost 100%. By day 3, you're 100% back at it. And that shortening of the off time and the adherence time being longer is consistency. That's all we're looking for.
And Liz, to make sure we're all on the same page here, when we're talking about the 100 grams of carbs, are we talking about gross or net?
Gross. So you don't even have to think about net carbs in the subtraction piece. It's just look at that carbohydrate line on your label or on, if you're Googling a food like an apple, just look at carbs. You don't have to subtract fiber, nothing like that. So that was, again, my plea to keep this simple because it never was. I mean, I've been behind some of the largest weight loss programs that were ever written. It was never about the fact that you adhered perfectly to the program. It was that you were consistent enough to the program. And when it becomes too complex for you to know how to calculate it by yourself or have to do an extra step of subtracting or anything that's going to stand in the way of that brain. Remember, I told you it's like a toddler having a fit. Anything that stands in the way of that. That's why I've tried to make this so simple. Oh, just wake up. It's fine. I went to a party. It was a little bit out of the pocket. Today I get 100, back to 100. Easy breezy. I'm going to have 100 ounces of water, 100 grams of carbs. Do the best I can today. Liz promised I'd feel even better by tomorrow, and by the third day, I am back in the saddle.
And for people who are wondering about carbs, and this is a totally new concept to them, and they might not know how many carbs are in different things, you talk about in the book how you can just Google whatever it is, an apple or a banana, and it'll
Yeah.
come right up for you. So in the beginning, there'll be a little bit of a learning curve here, and
Yeah.
it's going to take you a little bit of extra time to start to learn about this, but then it'll become second nature down the line.
Yes, and that again, like, you will likely need to and want to track for the first few weeks again, which is tracking is, like, behind a lot of the, Noom and Weight Watchers, the big behemoths put tracking in. Why? Because I told you earlier, it's a behavior modification that leads to you behaving differently, right? Tracking for me is not a realistic long-term solution. I mean, honestly, I always say, like, if someone has been, like, tracking their food for years at a time, it's it's like, okay, is that really going to be sustainable, right? So thinking through sustainability, it was another piece of the carbs, because carbs are very simple. You're going to notice large swaths of foods have no carbs. Basically, meat has no carbs, nuts, very few carbs, right? Cheese, very few carbs. And you're going to start to see where the carbs live, and that's a very simple process. So very quickly you can graduate from that obsessively tracking everything, which again has a lot of guilt and shame and weirdness attached to it if you don't remember to do it, and then you forget what you had yesterday and now you're off. I don't buy into any of that. That's my other thing, is like, if you had 110 carbs versus 91, you're going to still lose weight. It never was about the perfection. It was about the awareness and the desire to make an attempt at being in the process, not the perfection of the process.
This is a sustainable long-term process. It's not
Yeah.
about losing weight quickly and like you mentioned perfection there. It's not about perfection, which is
Yeah.
just so nice and it takes the stress off.
Well, I always say to someone, like, okay, what if you could do this and it actually felt good? You could go to parties, and let's just imagine you averaged a pound a week versus the 2 or 2.5 you could lose on an extreme diet, right? Over time, an average, right? Any extreme diet, you're going to drop 7 pounds of fluid in the first week, and then it's going to come down to, and if it's extreme, still in that 2.5 pound range, over time. What if you could maybe make it that you didn't hate your life, and you did get to have all the things in your life that you love, like maybe a glass of wine and a piece of birthday cake and try Friday night pizza, and you could have everything you wanted, and you lost 1 pound. The year is going to pass anyway, right? So you're down the 52 pounds in a year. The year has passed and you've enjoyed it. Or you can spend 26 weeks of your life completely miserable, lose that weight, and then most assuredly, I mean, the science and the research proves that 90% of those people are going to gain it back anyway. So it's you choose. It's a choose your own adventure. And some people choose, but I think it's because we've been inundated with this belief that that ideas around what weight loss should be. And I hear this more than anything. Well, but I should have lost more. Well, okay, but just go forward. Like, the should have is just a way to make it that this is not working, that this is bad. It's your brain's way of trying to get you to stop behaving this way because it doesn't like these changes that you're making. So any negative thinking, I think that's the other part of weight loss, is that negative thinking, if you can begin to really shift into a more positive mindset around this, right? The way I am doing is like, oh my God, well, okay, I could do this and I could like my life and I could lose over 50 pounds in a year and be in a totally different place, versus no, like, it has to be like this and I have to lose this much. And if I don't, like, how ridiculous of a thought process. I didn't lose over 2 pounds this week, so I quit. Well, now you're going to lose no weight. So that makes no sense. But the brain will do anything to get you to go back to what it knows and loves.
And being so rigid actually ties into one of the other pillars, which is stress and
Yes.
having 100 minutes of activity a week to de-stress. So,
Yes.
if you're going to be somebody sitting there who's, stressing about number of carbs to getting it perfect or again, doing any of these things to perfection, you're going to cause stress and you're going to work against the weight loss from that other angle.
Exactly. And that's why I put stress and sleep in, so you've got these 6 pillars. And why people really love this program is because they begin to say to me, wow, Liz, it's like I have 6 ways to win. And on a day where maybe the food wasn't so great, you go, you know what? But I did get my water done and I did take my steps and I did have a great night's sleep, right? You can win in different pillars. And I've had many people lose lots of weight, only really focused on 4 of the pillars, right? When you understand at the end of the day, so the 6 pillars are food, water, movement versus exercise, stress relief, and sleep. When you start to look at the stress pillar, right? So I'm asking you to get 100 minutes of stress relief in the week, and that could be petting your dog for 10 minutes a day. That could be getting a massage. That could be anything. It could be doing a little calm meditation on the app or listening to bedtime stories as you fall asleep, doing breathing exercises. It could be so many things. The thing is when you look at the intersectionality of these 6 pillars, I actually draw it in the book as an infinity symbol because they're so intertwined. Like you're exemplifying the stress around the food intake. Stress actually releases cortisol and makes us hungrier. It powers our run away from what it is the body thinks is threatening us. It makes us hungrier. There are actual hormones that then make you want to eat salt, sugar, and fat when you're stressed out. So by teaching yourself, okay, I'm going to trigger these 100 minutes in my week, and that really is not a lot. It is a very livable amount of stress relief, and stress relief should feel good. You start to recognize the intersectionality, right? Because you go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize my stress was affecting my sleep. So then you're not sleeping well, and you're like, stress released hormones that make you hungrier. Sleep, when you don't sleep well, you have a rise in a hormone that makes you hungrier called ghrelin. So then you wake up, you haven't slept well, you're completely stressed out. You're probably not going to go to your exercise class because you didn't sleep. So you blow off your exercise class, which is now exercise. Actually, there's science behind it that tells us that we actually eat better in a day that we exercise. So now that extra help isn't there. So you didn't sleep well, you're totally stressed out, you blew off your exercise. Are you gonna eat the kale and quinoa from the grocery cart for lunch? Most likely not. And that's okay. You're not a bad person at all. That's not, it's the recognition that stress and sleep play a huge role in how we behave, right? And we pull it back to those behaviors. So you didn't sleep. Now your brain goes into habit mode and says, oh, we just have to press snooze today. We've got to press snooze, remember? And snooze leads to no exercise, and no exercise leads to hitting the donut cart on the way to work, right? Like it all is connected. And so that's my goal, is to teach you it is not about just food. It's not about food and exercise. Those two things are a broken paradigm, an old-fashioned, antiquated paradigm that this entire industry has been built on. And so the sooner you begin to widen that lens and widen your thought process around this, the sooner you'll begin to not only enjoy this, but have much longer-term success.
Under the stress reduction piece, you talk about, at least at the time of writing the book, and I know this has changed over the years, using meditation as the top weight loss strategy.
Yeah.
So again, this is back when you wrote the book. It may be
Yeah.
different now, but obviously it's important and it's a piece of this puzzle for people. Why would that be so important?
Yeah. Because again, what you're doing is there are lots of hormones that get secreted when we're stressed, right? There's adrenaline and there's cortisol, and there are a whole bunch of things that get released. And what we know is that if we don't go in and actively take a role in reducing the stress in our lives, those hormones actually just keep flowing. So it's like there's like a sink on in the background, like just dripping, 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 or you left your car running in the garage, like, or out and you don't even realize it's on. The lights are on in the basement. You don't even know, right? You don't know, you don't feel it. It's not in your consciousness because you've been living this way for so long. So that little bit of extra stress and those hormones that make you hungrier, and they don't make you hungry for carrots, right? They make you hungry for salt, sugar, and fat. Those are going to make you behave differently. Okay. It's going to make it that when that craving hits, you are less able to stop it in its tracks. But if you go in each day, even for 10 minutes, and say, I'm going to turn the faucet off myself, I'm going to go to the basement, check if the lights are off, and turn them off. They don't get turned back on until something stressful occurs. So you've repressed and depressed the hormone flow by actively turning it off. Otherwise, it's going to keep running. So that's why I'm asking you to say, and I use meditation in air quotes again as a metaphor for some people, it's walking, right? Like a walking meditation. For some people, it's nature. For some people, it's breath work. For some people, it's petting a dog, right? Really finding out what is this thing that turns off your stress response, it flips the switch for you and in a daily way so that you can really function and not be driven by hormones and chemical responses.
Got it. I didn't know if it was something specific about meditation, but it's just, again, coming back to the choose your own adventure, that being a choice that somebody could make to help bring down the stress as a whole.
Yes. And in each chapter, at the end of each chapter of the book, I put 25 ideas for the choose your own adventure, right? So in the stress chapter, it might be that you like meditation, right? It might be that you like walking in nature as your stress reliever. It might be breathing exercises for you, but really figuring out what works or what repertoire of things work for you in a different day, because each day is different.
A couple of the pillars you touched on quickly, and I want to get into them a little bit more here, are exercise and movement. And you've distinguished the fact that movement is different. It's stuff that we're doing throughout the day that's not dedicated, focused activity on, moving our muscles or getting our heart rate up. I want to start with exercise though, because you have a really interesting take on this. In the book, you talk about how the importance of exercise actually has to do with the mental aspect and not so much the calories you're burning when you're exercising. So let's start there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for pulling that out. Like this is that I remember writing this chapter and being like, this is something that I had never seen talked about, but because in this industry, it's always calories in, calories out. That's all that anyone's cared about. And the exercise piece has always just been for everyone a lever that you pull to reduce calories. So I'm going to erase my food choice. I ate a cookie. I'll go take a few minutes at the gym, right? They saw it as this like lever to pull. I see it very, very differently. Exercise, this is one of my coach's quotes. I can't even take it for myself, but exercise gives you an opportunity to repetitively make hard decisions. And it starts with, am I even going today? Right? Like then you'd put the shoes on and walking out the door, you emptying the dishwasher and you're like, oh, I'm going to be late now. Right? It just gives you this opportunity to continuously run up against the decision to quit. And I translate that into, if you can begin to see exercise as this wonderful training ground of this ability to walk up to the edge of wanting to not do something and step over that little wall, because it's just a little wall, but the brain makes it feel like it's a big wall. If you can just say like, nope, I'm walking out the door now. Dishwasher's only half empty. It's okay. It'll be here when I come home. That's an incredible skill. Incredible. And it translates into, oh my God, I just ate a piece of pizza. Oh my God. You know what though? I'm going to put this away and I'm not going to eat another one. And it's okay. I can do this. It gives you the opportunity to just have the ability. And so exercise, I was out there doing it this morning and, each day there's a moment in my exercise where I said, oh, I don't want to, I'll just like, I'll walk the rest of the way, and I hear my brain say it, and I go, oh goodness, and it gives me a chance to go. I scan my body, and I'm like, I'm fine. I feel good. Like, why are you telling me this right now? Why are you telling me to quit? Why are you telling me I don't want to do this? I'm good. I'm going to see if I can go for one more minute. And I make the baby step of going that one more minute, which turns into two. That skill is the one I'm trying to teach in all six pillars, is when the brain says, oh, I don't feel like doing the meditation. Learning to be like, okay, that's great, but we're going to do it anyway. It's almost like the way you would talk to your children. Like, you begin learning to talk back to your brain that way in a really loving and gentle and kind way, not a, why are you so dumb? Why won't you do what you know is good for you? Which is the way most of us talk to ourselves inside, this extremely negative, very punishing voice that we picked up in diets past, right? That something's wrong with us, that we're broken. I'm inverting that. I'm going, let me just see. I think I actually feel really good. I'm going to keep running. Just for a minute, 1 minute. I'll go for a minute. And if I still feel like it, you know, that's the way I would talk to my kids. I'd say, yeah, why don't we just do one math problem and see how the rest of the night goes? So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a really important piece of your message is something I'm highlighting that you just brought up. The fact that as human beings, when we're trying to, in this case, lose weight and try and stick within these pillars, there's going to be natural resistance that comes up. And I think just for somebody tuning in right now and having that realization that it is normal when that happens and it happens to all of us and we need to push through, I think that's an important key that I hope people pull from this and realize that no, it's not easy, but it's not easy for any of us. And our brain is going to often try and get us to go down the easy path. And we need to be aware of that ahead of time and push through.
Yeah. And pushing through, it should be a small thing, not a big thing, right? So I almost like am reacting to the language of pushing through because I don't want anyone to be like, gotta just push through. It's gentler than that, which that really works. I always joke that like I keep the bar so low that like I could step over it at any time. And what that does is it creates momentum, right? So the 1 minute extra of running, like is like, oh, I just did that. Okay, that's awesome. I kind of rock. I just made it through. And then the brain is already on to like, you did that thing. Look at you, you did that. And now you've created positive momentum with just a small move. So just create that small push through. It's like a gentle nudge through, if you will.
That's a good point. And I want to touch on something that you did bring up earlier, the interconnectedness of all these different pillars. And I think that's an important part of why your plan is so successful because you're hitting at this weight loss thing from so many different angles that it allows for room of imperfection, coming back to our imperfection piece,
Yes.
which is something that's allowed within this plan because you're you know, hitting it from the stress, the sleep. And again, I want to watch my words. It's hitting sounds intense, but this is a very gentle approach
Yeah.
and very accommodating for all. But the fact that if you do go off your eating plan and have, say, 120 grams of carbs one day, because you're doing all these other things, you can almost make up for it because everything is so connected.
Yes. Yes. And, I've built a whole business around this now. I have a program and classes that you can take, but we actually send out a box when you join our classes of connected devices. And you get a Fitbit tracker, you get a scale that measures your body fat percentages and all these different numbers, and you get a water bottle that actually tracks how much water you drink because there's actually a formula for each and every one of us that allows us to actually lose weight. So some people can get away with as many as 120 grams of carbs a day and still lose weight because they actually walk quite a bit in their natural life. Whereas some of us sit on Zoom all day and we really do have to watch the carb intake, but our sleep is so good that we actually get a bump there too. So these other pillars really impact the fact that we all like stayed pinned on one pillar and that only gave you a chance to look at your success or failure there. And it just isn't true because honestly, like I just did an amazing discussion with a doctor about sleep. And, he was like, and I know this, sleep is the place and time in which your body detoxes during the night. And just learning to not eat a couple of hours before bed, it actually enhances your sleep so much that your metabolism is at such a better rate that next day, right? So sleep, like versus me just being like, I have to stick to this food plan. There are a lot of days where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go to bed now because that is the most powerful thing I can do for my body, my brain, my mind, and you can't sleep and eat, right? So it's a great lever to pull, but no one's talking about it as this incredible weight loss tool. So when you have six tools or six levers to pull, on that day that you did go to 120, go to bed early. Go to bed early and let your sleep do the magical. Drink extra water. Let this powerful piece of hydration be this other part that you go like, that's okay. I had a couple cookies with my kids and Halloween is coming. I had a couple extra pieces of candy. Okay, I'm going to get it into a place where I don't see it, right? I'm going to put it into my environment where I won't be triggered by it. And I'm going to go to bed early and I'm going to get up tomorrow. I have a fresh 100 and I'm going to just be in it for the long haul and not beating myself up over perceived failures.
Let's go a bit deeper into the hydration piece. This is something that's come up a number of times now. And I think, anybody who's sort of dipped their toe into the health and wellness space knows the importance of hydration.
Sure.
But your plan recommends 100 ounces of water a day. So first of all, how many around about, because we're not about specifics here, but how many cups would that be? And then aside from the fact that we know it's a healthy thing to do, drink a lot of water and keep hydrated, why in terms of weight loss is that so important?
Sure. Well, so this is for me, I have like a 33-ounce mug here that I use. So I got to get through three of these in a day. Now, 100 ounces, if you want to go into like 8-ounce cups, right, you're looking closer to like 12 of those, 13 of those, right, if it's a small cup of water. Believe it or not, I actually, in doing the research for the book, it started with the idea around 100, and then I started researching everything. And the actual recommendation by the government for men is 112 ounces of water a day, and for women is 96. So I just pinned it sort of right there in the middle of 100 ish, right? Because we're always talking about the ish. So that's why we said 100. 100 is going to be hard. I mean, 75% of Americans are walking around critically dehydrated. We do not drink water anymore. If we drink anything, it's coffee or coffee drinks and sodas and things that are filled with sugars or saccharins and artificial sweeteners. Like it's not a hydrating experience. I'm talking about really hydrating your body. So you actually are over, 68% water. Your body is over 68%. And the important parts of your body and the ones that are responsible for your metabolism, like your heart and your lungs and your brain, they run on water. Like 78% of that machine is water. If it doesn't have enough, guess what it does? It just slows down. Says, well, I don't have enough gas to run this car, but this car is a human and I can't stop. I can't, or that means death. So I'm really smart system. I'll just slow everything down, especially the metabolism. And so that metabolism slows down. Your body doesn't feel safe. And it's very stressful. One of the stress relieving tips you can take away from this talk today is drink your water. Your body is very stressed out when it's dehydrated. So you don't need to go from almost no water to 100 ounces. Remember, this is baby steps, right? Go 10 ounces a week over time. Add, if you're at 30, go to 40 this week. If you're at 40, 50, 50, 60. Just really build it up over time. The other piece is we mistake thirst for hunger. We don't know the difference because we are dehydrated all the time. So we think that is hunger. So once we begin to discern between the two, we can drink water when we're supposed to be drinking water, and we can eat food when we're supposed to be eating food. Interestingly enough, we were very smart as prehistoric beings, right? Where we couldn't go get a bottle of Poland Spring from the vending machine. We had to find it. And sometimes we couldn't find it. So we would eat plants. So we would eat plants, right? Eat. We would eat plants and there was water in plants. So we would begin to get hydrated from eating. So the body and the mind often still dis like put those two into confusion. So if you are hydrated and you get hungry, you know you're actually hungry. So really putting that piece in your favor is a simple but not easy behavior change. So we go back to the beginning. You're not going to remember to do this. You've been driving to work not drinking water for a really long time. You're going to get in the car and you're not going to pack your water. So you're going to need, like me, big bright bottles. I've got in the box that we send out, it's a Bluetooth enabled water bottle that triggers you to drink. It lights up your phone. It lights up itself on your desk. We have to train ourselves so that you can't even come up here without this thing or you feel really weird. So it's a part of you. So this again, you said, what are these simple things they could take away today? The hydration piece is one of those that is so impactful that it will lead to weight loss on its own. It's interesting.
I love that. And what I love about it is, certain things we've talked about today don't have a physical piece to them. And with the water bottle, if you go out and get a good water bottle, that's something that you can have physically with you. And it's a built-in reminder, like the sticky note.
Yeah. And I've loved working with thousands of people and then being one of those people, right? Who's like doing this every single day. People come up with the most ingenious ways to trigger themselves. I've got people who bought 5 different 20-ounce water bottles and put them in different spots in their house each day, and they have to complete those based on sort of that. I've got people like me who do this. We've got the Bluetooth-enabled water bottle. We've got people who line up the Poland Springs on their desk, and by the time they leave, they have to have done that many. You've got to come up with a system that works for you.
And when you use that term water, how relaxed are you with that? Because I know you mentioned specifically coffee.
Yeah.
That doesn't count towards the water. But can people have, carbonated water, put lemon in their water if they find water to be quite boring? Or what are some
Yes.
tips for people out there that are just going to talk about water being too boring?
Yeah. Well, I would say my loose, right, because I'm always so loose-ish guidelines is honestly coffee can be counted for, I'm asking you to really get 75% of your water as true water. And then for that other 25%, you could count some tea or some coffee or some sparkling water. Some people put little flavorings in their water. But I try to get you to drink 75% of where you are. So if you're only at 50, that's going to be 40 of those ounces. Try to get, to that real water. Your body doesn't respond like the way it does to real water to anything else. And then things like coffee, they do hydrate you, but they also have some dehydrating properties. They do create a little bit of dehydration. So I don't want you relying on those. I want you to really think about so I'll do this and then at least, for sure, 25% of it, I do like a sparkling water. I really like that. I put a little splash of kombucha in there sometimes. I get very creative, but I try to get you to have some pure water as well.
All right, before we part ways, one other area I want to make sure we delve into is the movement piece. And we've differentiated between exercise and movement, but I want to make sure we really hit home the difference there. So people want to get 100 minutes of exercise, like we've talked about, per week,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to get 100 extra minutes of movement. And that could be things like, parking your car further from the shopping mall or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. But what I want to make sure we give people is different ideas, because 100 minutes is quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're talking about things like, taking the stairs or walking a little bit farther
Yeah.
from the parking spot. It'll take a while to build that up. So what are some other areas people can look to get that extra movement on a regular basis?
Yes, yes. And movement's so important, right? I think you're standing. I should be standing, right? Even just the act of our body being in an upright position actually really spurs metabolism, right? Because you've got that heart rate and that blood circulation going. in that bent garden hose position, in that seated position, you really do stunt that metabolism. So I'm trying to get you to get that 100 extra minutes of movement in a week. So that could be just, hey, I'm going to take a couple of my calls on my headset while I wander around. Or, hey, I'm going to ask my friend to go for a 20-minute walk three mornings this week. Or, hey, like me, I'm going to extend those dog walks that I'm giving them 15 minutes. I'm going to make it 25 to 30 minutes each time I walk the dog. You'll very easily hit that. You could then go out on a walk on the weekends, or, just finding ways to be more active are going to be very important. I would say that's the biggest impact from COVID, is that people's lifestyle, as sedentary as we were, it was exacerbated by probably 200%, and is a 90% increased risk of diabetes when you sit for over 8 hours a day. And that, when you really, in my book, I ask you to really think about your day. And most of us are sitting in our car, then getting out and sitting at our desks, and then getting out and sitting in our car and going home and doing a few errands and then sitting on the couch. Our day is just filled with sitting. So working on finding those small ways. There are even great YouTubers that there's walk at home videos that you could pop in. You could march during your commercials. Like, you do anything to get yourself up and not be in this position throughout the day is going to be magical for you.
All right. And to highlight the pillars as we come to a close here, we have 100 carbohydrates per day. We have 100 ounces of water that we're going to drink in a day. We're going to get 100 extra minutes of sleep per week. We're going to do 100 minutes of de-stress activity, which could be something like meditation per week. Okay, so we got the food and water, we got those. And then we have our movement piece, which we just talked about. And then exercise, 100 minutes of exercise per week. So Liz, really enjoyed this. I think your plan is fantastic. It covers things, again, from so many different angles. It's very gentle, inclusive, not striving for perfection. And you're somebody that's been in this world and dealt with thousands of clients. So you've been through it all. You've seen it all. And this is what really works. So I really appreciate this. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And maybe you mentioned you have another book coming out on recovery. Maybe we could do this again down the line. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to link up the book. We're going to link up your social media, everything in the show notes. And I just want to thank you again for coming on the show. This was great.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was a real pleasure.
Now that you're done my conversation with Liz, you're going to want to stick around here and catch my chat with Jason, where you're going to learn even more about weight loss. I'll see you over there.
They were all on insulin, and within a month, all three of them were off of all their insulin. And they'd been on the insulin for like 20 years, right? So 20 years, they got